Welcome back. As you heard House Majority Leader Steve Scalise say just a few moments ago, Republicans in the House hold a very slim majority. My next guest, trying to change that. Washington Democratic Congresswoman Suzan DelBene joins me now. She is the chair of the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee, and one of that committee's principal goals is to re-elect House Democrats seeking another term. And in that regard, Suzan, I want to ask you about David Hogg, who is a vice chair of the Democratic National Committee, who has a political action committee with $20 million. He says he wants to devote to defeating a quote-unquote asleep at the wheel House Democrats. That seems at odds with what you're trying to accomplish. How do you regard that effort? And do you believe David Hogg should remain a DNC vice chair?
You know, I think our number one goal is to make sure we take back the House. We need to make sure that we have a check on this president. We have a Congress that's going to do its job on oversight to be a check to this president. So taking back the House is job one. Obviously, my job one. We are unified in our goal to take back the House. We only need 3 more seats to get there. That is a critical focus. I think we have an incredible opportunity to do that, and Democrats across the country are united in doing it, and that is our focus.
What about David Hogg?
Again, our focus across the country is making sure that we take back the majority, make sure that Hakeem Jeffries is the Speaker of the House. So we're not going to be distracted from that. That is our top priority, and Democrats are united in doing that.
Is David Hogg and his money a distraction?
I think anything that's not focused on making sure that we take back the House is not focused on the number one goal. And it's a number one goal because there's people across the country are outraged with what's happening. They see costs go up. They see a president that has a blindly loyal Congress letting him do whatever he wants to do. People want to make sure that we have a functional Congress. They want leaders who are going to stand up for their communities. We need to make sure we elect those leaders across the country. We have 14 Democrats who won in seats that Donald Trump won. To take back the majority, we're going to need to continue to win in these purple swing districts across the country. That needs to be our focus. Speaking
of that, according to the Cook Political Report, there are 18 Republican-held seats they regard as either toss-up or lean Republican. 18. 3 in California, 3 in Pennsylvania, 2 in Arizona, 2 in Iowa, 2 in Michigan. Is that your hunting ground?
I think we have opportunities all across the country. Clearly, we have a lot of, and we put out our map of our pickup opportunities, 35 districts across the country, many in places like Michigan, Pennsylvania, Arizona. But we have races everywhere. We have opportunities in Kentucky and Tennessee. So we are going to fight for all of these seats. And frankly, Republicans are running scared. That's why Elise Stefanik is not an ambassador to the United Nations. They pulled that nomination because they were scared. We know that the American people are outraged. The American people are on our side. And I think you're going to continue to see more and more districts in play as people fight to make sure that they have people who are going to stand up for them in Congress. And frankly, Republicans aren't interested in representing their communities. They aren't even interested in doing town halls in person with people because they don't want to hear what they have to say.
Suzan, when I talk to House Republicans, even Senate Republicans, but specifically House Republicans, since they've put the vote on the board already, they're supremely confident, not just about the policy, but the overall politics of the president's economic agenda. You believe that's going to crash their majority next year. Why?
I absolutely believe that this is a critical vote that they've taken. It is about raising costs for American families. It's a broken promise. They promised, in fact, Trump promised on day one to lower costs for American families, and he's done nothing to do that. Costs have gone up. This bill guts health care for millions of Americans, guts nutrition programs, things like free school lunch. All of this raising prices on working families only to pay for tax breaks for billionaires. People see that across the country. You see that in polling on the bill. You see that when you talk to people in districts across the country. Republicans know that. They don't want to talk about it. They're trying to distract from that, but we're going to hold them accountable for these votes that they are taking that are going to impact working families across the country.
Susan, a moment ago you mentioned oversight. I want to play something that you're familiar with. It happened today when you were questioning Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent. Let's listen.
Mr. Secretary, do you support the government having a consolidated database containing Americans' sensitive financial health and personal information?
I support protecting Americans.
Do you support the consolidated database?
I support protecting Americans' personal information based on current law.
I think it's very concerning that you're not able to say no. This is not a partisan question.
What's that about?
There are ongoing efforts with DOJ to consolidate sensitive personal information of American citizens, putting together financial information, healthcare information, taxpayer information, all very sensitive information, to put that together in a database, to bring isolated information from different agencies together. It's extremely concerning, one, because it breaks rules of privacy that are in place. And what I was acting the secretary, there are rules. 6103 is a rule that was in place to make sure that taxpayer information is protected. When you combine this together, one, it can be weaponized against people, but also it puts at great risk if there's any malicious activity or cybersecurity risks. There's been no transparency over what they're doing, and I was asking the secretary to explain it, and he seemed unwilling to even enter into the conversation explaining. Our job is oversight in Congress. He has to answer, and his team has to answer to us about the work they're doing. And unfortunately,
Susan,
Republicans haven't been willing to call more and more folks into a hearing so we can do that oversight.
Congressman Suzan DelBene, thanks for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you.